An investigation by the Public Protector has found that the establishment of the crime prevention wardens by the Gauteng government was irregular. Public Protector Advocate Kholeka Gcaleka published a report which found that there was no legal basis to establish the so-called Amapanyaza. This is after an application for their establishment was rejected by the Justice Department for failing to state the supporting legal framework. This was further confirmed by a technical committee appointed to resolve the legal issues between the Gauteng government and the Justice Department. The Public Protector says the establishment and participation in police operations constitutes impropriety and maladministration. The Gauteng government has since been instructed to finalize their conversion to traffic wardens within the next 6 months. All right, now Public Protector Advocate Kholeka Gcaleka joins us for more. Very good evening to you, PP. Thank you so much for your time. Perhaps just talk to us briefly in terms of the key findings of your investigation and what prompted your office to investigate the establishment of the wardens.
Good evening, Katlego, and good evening to the Newzroom Afrika viewers. Firstly, what prompted the investigation is a complaint which we had received as the Office of the Public Protector, and the complaint basically alleged that the Premier had taken upon himself, to act outside of the bounds of the law by establishing these crime prevention wardens, and that this was not regulated by any existing legal framework, and that this was actually maladministration which had been committed. We then assessed the matter, and the issue that we had taken up was whether the establishment of these crime prevention wardens was within the law. Now, the findings basically which we make is that the Gauteng Community Safety Department had misdirected itself when it established these crime prevention wardens, because the legal framework within which they had purported to act within didn't make provision of that, and that their actions were inconsistent with the Constitution, particularly Section 41(1) F and G, which states that all spheres of government, organs of state, within each sphere, must not assume any power or function except that which is conferred upon them. Yes, they have to cooperate amongst one another, but it cannot assume that particular function. And as a result, then we found that the appointment of these crime prevention wardens was thus irregular and inconsistent with the law.
So, Advocate, you speak of the Gauteng Department of Community Safety, and they also sought additional budget from Provincial Treasury to fund elevated priorities such as establishing and recruiting of these wardens. Were there any breaches with regards to procurement of public finance within the establishment of these wardens?
The establishment of these wardens was not a procurement process. It was an appointment process, which is basically a recruitment process, which we did not investigate. But what we actually investigated was the regularity within which they were recruited, which was actually irregular. So it was not a procurement service, but it was an appointment service, which is a human resource establishment.
Right. So we heard earlier from the Premier when he was giving a briefing with regards to the wardens no longer existing in the form that they currently are in. And he said that within the spirit of in Gauteng, 1 police officer to 358 residents, and this not being in line with the recommendations of the UN, and this being completely below. What do you think are the potential implications of such irregularities in putting together such wardens in terms of public safety and just trust in government institutions?
I think what should have been done in this instance was to ensure that they are properly regulated, and I think the rationale behind augmenting the existing law enforcement capacity was actually correct, but the manner in which it was done was incorrect. The statistics before us all, which are made public by the police, is that crime is high in Gauteng, and therefore there is intervention that is required. However, the intervention has to be within the law. It has to be properly regulated so that all that is in place is accounted for. Hence, we have accountability, we've got transparency in line with the Constitution, and there must be compliance with existing legal frameworks.
And in your view, PP, what systemic issues do you think exist within government processes that might have contributed to these irregularities?
Well, what we've realized in this instance is that, and which is why we took the remedial action, that the legal team within which community safety has to be trained, is that one, it was very clear that there was no accurate application of the law, and therefore we need to ensure that the capacity which we have within the state is capable to execute the functions with which they are vested with. But also in respect of the issue of cooperative governance, we need to ensure that each and every state institution or department plays its role in order to cooperate with one another and ensure that they are able to deliver services in a manner in which is consistent with the Constitution.
So you've put together some remedial action that needs to take place with a number of entities, that being the Premier, the MEC of the Department of Community Safety. Maybe just talk us through some of the highlights of the remedial action that you want to see happen within the next couple of months.
Most definitely, and I think one of them is what the Premier has announced today, which was part of the intended remedial actions which were provided to him together with all those who are affected within the Gauteng provincial government, that they need to ensure that these crime prevention wardens do not continue to exist in the current form, and that they are established in line with existing legislation, for instance, them being incorporated into the National Road Traffic Act, and that there requires to be a cooperation between all affected departments, which is community safety itself, the Department of Justice, the police themselves, and as well as the Road Traffic Management Corporation. Hence, we take the remedial action that as soon as all the training process of these wardens has taken place, the National Commissioner of Police has to work together with the department and assist them to ensure that the appointment of these traffic wardens is within the province and which they would have determined in line with the law, and that they actually cooperate with one another in line with the Constitution. And the same goes to the Road Traffic Management Corporation.
All right, Public Protector, thank you so much for your time and for joining us so late in the evening to give us your response to this. That's the Public Protector of South Africa speaking to us there about the allegations of an irregular establishment and appointment and deployment of the crime prevention wardens in Gauteng.